I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're exploring a groundbreaking book that challenges the way we see ourselves, our history, and our collective future. It is called Notes from Outside the Box, and it is written by a terrific author. His name is CharlesACottom, and he dives into humanity's new paradigm using powerful insights, big picture thinking, and trending concepts like consciousness, evolution, and the human condition. This compelling read gives readers a clearer, wider, and more hopeful understanding of who we are and where we're going. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Charles, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you.
In your book, which is fascinating, you describe global turmoil as birth pangs. What
Yes.
does that metaphor reveal about where humanity is headed?
Well, my study has lasted my whole life. The book is based upon a bunch of insights I had through living my life, and I've had a very amazing life of all kinds of experiences. But the big dichotomy I never resolved was the conflict between math and science. Um, that's the basis of all our conflict. I mean, we have the commerce that comes out from it, but essentially it's the tangible versus the intangible. The tangible of science always trumps the intangible of faith, and so you have faith fighting one another, and that's what I try to resolve. There's a way to look at the human condition from outside the box where you see us all together in one group. It's like the space men that look down from the earth and says, there was no national boundaries, so I'm looking down at a place that has no national boundaries. You can barely see where the jungles are, where the mountains are, or anything else, and you get a clearer picture then. And that was one of the first things I did was magnificent perfection of everything. It is perfect. No matter what viewpoint you have on it, it is perfect. And that's the foundation we have to come back to. What is perfect. It is perfect. It is perfect with Muslims. It is perfect with Buddhists. It is perfect with the Anoki Indians. That's all real. And it's all the same and it's all even. And we got to look at one another that way. I've traveled in foreign countries. I don't have an American atmosphere, and I talk to the people, and they're just people like me. We have a different language and maybe a different faith. When I was in Korea, I was looking down, there was a Buddhist temple on Sunday, and the Koreans are going into the Buddhist temple, and I was standing there in kind of shabby clothes because I was traveling, and they were looking at me with an invitation to come into their church and sell their services. And the only reason I didn't, because I was shabby and I didn't want to just desecrate their thing. And I don't think they understood that. And I've always regretted that. But no, any place I went, the common people reached out. The only thing you see on the news is turmoil, turmoil, and turmoil, and I don't even watch it anymore. It's just creating diversity, splitting people apart. Look what's happening in the United States now. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I think people are thriving off of discord, particularly
That's right.
media outlets and social media.
Yes.
Talk to us about a paradigm moment and what makes you conclude that humanity is entering one now.
Um, a paradigm moment of why we're in one now. The thing is, the essays of my book are transcribed from my entire history, so I have to go back to where I started from, which was the little drummer boy. He played his best for him, Boy Scouts, do your best, and I finally went to college and I took philosophy and I found out that Immanuel Kant says you have the perfect duty. The satisfaction in life comes from the perfect duty. And then later on, a big epiphany I had was in the movie Zorba the Greek. And Zorba is sitting there, why does anybody die? Why does a young die? What's the use of all your damn books? If you can't answer that, what can you tell me? And the Englishman says, they tell you about the agony of men that can't answer questions like that. And that's where it's at now, the agony of men that can't answer questions like that. Um, And that's the powerful statement. I want to answer those questions. That's what's in my book. How do you think about um, the dichotomy between what is science and faith? It's tangible versus intangible. Tangible as science. And so it always trumps faith because you can measure, you can feel it, and you can taste it. But and it's the laws of science, right? So but there's laws of intangibility, and this is a point I bring in my book. This is an important point. The laws of intangibility are universal. Any place you go that has a sentient species, there's a fundamental concepts, philosophical concepts that are based upon um, truth, honor, justice, love. Those will be, if you have a mind that can think and carry on civilization, it will know those concepts. Those are the laws of intangibility. And you can't feel them. Sure, you can feel them. You can feel truth. You can feel all those things. You can't measure it. Sure, you can measure it. And the thing is about science that really annoys me is that it's the fact that they're so adamant about the righteousness of measuring, but they don't even know what the processes of brain are that they assess that with. You know, you're talking about intangible concepts here that they're trying to apply to science, and they can't do it. You know, they can't do that. They don't know the universe is made up of 95% of dark matter. They don't even know what that is, you know. So they have holes in their belief. There's no holes in faith. You feel that. But there's holes in science because that's what we strive to do. You know, we can do five things. Um, we have curiosity, we have evaluation, we have um, ingenuity, and then we create. We can create that which did not exist before. That's a powerful thing we have, and we just ignore that. What we do is we invent tools to dig up our crops so we can make plants, and that worked really good. But then we use the tools to take the plants away from somebody else by weapons. We sit there and invent bullets or fireworks to celebrate or things in China, and we take the gunpowder and make cannons out of it. You know, there's a dichotomy there. And that's what I'm trying to resolve. And the content of my book is to explain the precepts that go into that, the processes, all the way back from the ancient things where the ancient people had to. What happened, Grandma? You know, when you finally got a civilization where people got old, you know, they saw people with white hair and wrinkled skin. Grandma, what happened before I was born? Grandma, what happened after I was dead? They had to come up with answers. That became the foundation of faith, intangible concepts. How many Egyptian empires were there? Dynasty after dynasty, and they all failed. Why? Because the Nile River floods. And they couldn't stop the Nile River from flooding, and it destroyed five five or six generations of dynasties at least, you know, because they couldn't answer that. And that's the thing all the way along. We have all this science and we want to answer all these questions and we're just not doing it. We're having this thing where you make more money not answering the questions. So
Exactly.
that's it.
Charles, let me ask you this. Why do you think humanity focuses more on its differences than its commonalities?
Humanity doesn't. The news
Mhm.
media does to sell newspaper, period. That's
Mm.
it. The people don't. I've traveled. The people are not like that. I've traveled in villages where people lived in grass huts. They were nice, decent, would give me anything, and I would give them anything.
Right. But our political leaders tend to, whether it's Korea, the United States, or Russia, or Ukraine, or whatever country you choose, tend to want to divide and conquer as well. So
That's
they
right.
don't necessarily represent humanity, but they are actually
It's common.
representing humanity, right?
They want the money from it so they can
Yeah.
have the money from it. That's it. That's the big difference.
Yeah, it's power. It's power, it's money, it's control.
Yep.
And if we do have a global view of the world,
Yep.
if the boundaries that we have put up are just imaginary boundaries and they're not enforced, then they lose their power, then they lose their money, then they lose their prestige. So I
Exactly.
believe you're very, very right there, without a doubt.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Exactly. Talk to us a little bit about your ladder structure and how it helps readers digest complex concepts one rung at a time.
Okay, well, I've organized them in a thought process, and so it seems counterintuitive because I cover tangibility in chapter 5, and I don't talk about the box till the last chapter because I want them to visit the box. Now, each page it's only one page or page and a half, so it's easy to read the pages. It's not like you're reading a book. Each page is a concise little representation of something, you know. What is tangibility? What is this? How do you think about it? You know? And so that's what all the book chapters are. And they're a logical sequence. You can read them one at a time, but you can read them. You could just open the page 4, you look at the chapter title and say, oh, this one sounds interesting. But they are logical. It starts out with um, whatever is perfect, you know. And so how can you sit there and challenge it? Whatever is, oh, come on, it's not perfect, but it is perfect. You know, it's the perfect consequence of the choices we make individually and collectively, moment by moment. Here's a proof of it. If you sit there and slept in for 5 minutes, Pastor took a decide to sleep in, and you go to work and you have an accident, you say, oh, that's terrible, that's bad. But if you'd gotten up at your regular time, you wouldn't have been on the freeway at the time for the accident to happen. And that's the same choice moment by moment, whether they stay in bed or whether they come up, they get everybody on the freeway at the same time with making decisions moment by moment that ends up in an accident. That accident is perfect. It's the perfect consequence of making those decisions. When somebody shoots a rifle, it's the perfect consequence of what preceded it. That's why we have to change the preceding things. You know, we have to acknowledge the fact that we're controlling that perfection. What we experience is the perfect consequence of this, every decision made by yourself and by everybody else. I get a lot of solace out of that. I
Yeah.
get angry, I get everything else, but I get a lot of solace from knowing this is the perfection. I could have done this and I wouldn't be here now. I could have stayed home and I wouldn't be here now. I could have waited before I stepped in the street and I wouldn't be here now. You
Right.
see, you just have a solace by understanding that.
Charles, before we leave you, we have about 2 minutes left. Let me ask you this. When the readers are done with this book, when they turn that last page, what do you hope stays with them? What do you hope sticks with them? What do you hope changes within them?
That they can find answers to their solutions when they get confused, upset, or something. They can look in there. What is the chapter about that? What is the chapter about that? How do I think about these things? And it'll be reminders. I mean, I look at the book myself now, and I can't even put it together. I couldn't read it from cover to cover. It's not a book to read from cover to cover. It's a book to read one chapter at a time. It's in a logical sequence. You start there, and then you can go back to the book for the rest of your life. That's what I do.
Yeah. One more question before we leave you, because we still have about another minute. We talked about politics and politicians dividing us. What about religions?
Religions have to be that way, though. But um, the faith goes back a long time to the earliest concept. And if you're living in this environment here, you're going to have a different precept. If you're living in this environment here, like Egypt in the desert, and they had the flooding, they have to worship the gods about that. So the work of the gods was based upon the living conditions they were in. What happens is when they started getting language and communicating, building civilizations, then the commerce got into it and they wanted what other people had. And that's the way it is now. Religion is religion. I can go to a Buddhist temple and feel very comfortable there. I can go any place in the world and feel comfortable
Yeah.
because I don't judge people by that. They might have a different interpretation, but they're interpreting the same thing. That's the point.
Exactly. I think they all want the best for their families, the best for their
That's right.
communities, the best for
That's
their
right.
environment. Every generation wants the next generation to succeed. I do believe we have more commonalities and differences. I do think the differences are exaggerated by the media, as you say, and now hyper exaggerated by the social media platforms because they
Yes,
thrive on
that's
clicks.
excellent.
Every click is a payment to them. Wonderful book, so insightful, so compelling. It is called Notes from Outside the Box. It is a powerful guide to understanding who we are and where we're going as a species. Charles, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me. This has
I
been a real
appreciate your time, your insight, and the wonderful work you've done on this book. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.